Welcome back to Kim Daly TV. In this video, I want to go back to the basics. I want to talk franchising 101. How does a franchise actually work? If you're new to my channel, hello and welcome. So my name is Kim Daly. I'm a franchise consultant, and I have been blessed to help people just like you for over 2 decades of my life explore franchise opportunities by matching your background, interests, skills, finances, and life goals to some of the best franchise opportunities out there today. And if you get inspired and you would like Kim Daly to be your franchise consultant, stay with me to the end of the video and I will share how you could become my next candidate. Okay, so we're kicking it old school today. We are going back to the basics, the foundational knowledge about what is a franchise and how does it benefit me. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Let's say that you want to own a business and there are two potential paths. There's the entrepreneurship and there's the franchisepreneurship. So let's just talk about entrepreneurship for 1 minute so that we can really point out the big differences in franchising. Okay, so as an entrepreneur, you have to have an idea. You have to have a lot of courage. You have to have a lot of money. You need a lot of time. You need a lot of patience because you don't know what you don't know. And the failure rate in the pure startup entrepreneurship path is like greater than 90%. So the vast majority of people who think they have a brilliant idea, they go out there and they try to start a business and they fail. Do you know why they fail? I do know why, because I have dug into this research. This is what I do for a living. I want to know, why are all these people not becoming successful business owners when they're working so hard and spending so much money? And some of them even have really great ideas. The vast majority of people who start a business from scratch, they fail simply because they run out of money before they really figure out how to make money. That's the number one reason. So why are they running out of money? Because there's no track record. There's nothing there to tell them A plus B equals C and in this time frame. And so they're making it up. They're grossly underestimating what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. They're probably making a lot of mistakes, costly mistakes, spending a lot of time and effort trying to figure it all out, driving themselves crazy, losing patience, and going broke. Now, if you become an entrepreneur and you're one of the lucky ones to defy the odds, that's amazing. And I am not down on entrepreneurship because look, if we don't have entrepreneurs, we never have any new franchises. So we do need people with their own creative ideas who want to go out there and figure it out on their own. But the vast majority of people who wake up and find themselves at some fork in the road, right? I've been laid off from corporate America, or I just hate my freaking job. If I have to go back to one brainless meeting, I'm going to kill myself, right? The people who've been road warriors, they've missed their kids growing up. They are stuck at a glass ceiling. They're tired of the politics of corporate America. They want to wake up and be their own boss. Or maybe somebody who's been an entrepreneur before, who's figured it out and was able to make money, but they say to themselves, never, ever again. Now, a former entrepreneur is not going to go work for somebody else if they want growth. They want to own businesses. But by the nature that they've done it one time on their own, believe me, those are the easiest people to convince of the true value proposition of investing in a franchise because they know how hard that entrepreneurial road is. Okay, so with that set up, let's get into franchising 101. What are the basics? What's the value proposition? Why do people do it? And we'll go from there. So the reason to invest in a franchise is because you want to build a cash flowing asset. Cash is king. You want some tax advantage. You want the personal and professional growth that comes from ownership in a business. But you don't have a lot of time, you don't have millions of dollars, and you want to be successful. So you invest in the proven systems of a franchise. Somebody else has already gone out and figured out how to make money. So you're going to pay them a one-time fee called a franchise fee. And I call that fee the cost of entry into their Disneyland. So the day you sign your franchise agreement, you wire them some money and they open the gate and they give you a proven business plan, some initial training, access to vendors, maybe some technology, a marketing plan, and a network of other franchisees who are all building the same business. And so you can support each other. You can work with each other to solve the ongoing problems of the business. So it's this idea that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So you're buying down that learning curve. You're buying up the ramp up speed because you're not trying to figure out how to make money. From day one, you have the systems and knowledge on how to start turning it over and making money. And so with all of that, you are buying down the risk. Now, I can't make a specific claim about the success or failure rate of franchises, but I will tell you this. All of that information will be disclosed to you when you become an active candidate looking at a particular business. They will provide for you what's called a franchise disclosure document. So the franchise disclosure document is mandated by the Federal Trade Commission. So the Federal Trade Commission, the government, is regulating the disclosure of information in franchising. It's one of the things that makes franchising a better investment, a safer investment than a business opportunity, a license, or a distributorship, where there's way less regulation, especially with regards to earnings claims. So here in franchising, everything the franchisor is going to verbalize to you, especially with regard to what it's going to cost to open the business and potentially how much money you can make, all of that must be disclosed in writing. And anyway, why would you want to believe somebody if they weren't going to put it in writing, right? So the franchise disclosure document backs up what the franchisor says to you. Everything that is legal about this relationship is represented in this franchise disclosure document. But on the flip side, a franchise disclosure document doesn't tell you everything you really want to know in order to go on and become a franchisee. But I want you to know, in a franchising 101, what is franchising basic video, we have to talk a little bit about the FDD. I have other videos on this channel where I dive deeper into what's in here, what's not in here, how to use it, how not to use it. So for this video, Franchising 101, let's just note that there is regulation by the federal government over franchising, and everything is regulated in this franchise disclosure document. Okay. All right, so we've talked about buying down the learning curve, buying up the ramp up speed, mitigating the startup risks, partnering ourselves with people, buying into a community with other investors who are also invested with us and helping to build this brand. Okay, so with that setup, let me say this. If you said to me, Kim, with your knowledge, you've been in franchising for over 20 years, what's the number one reason to invest in a franchise? This is what I would say. The number one reason to invest in a franchise is because you have found people who have a vision for building a brand. And when they share that vision with you, it inspires you and you want to be a part of that. And as you go through their discovery process, you learn about their systems and their technology and their tools and where they've come from, but more importantly, where they want to go. So you're not investing in the franchise for where it was, nor are you investing in the franchise for where it is. You're investing in the franchise for the future potential. So by looking at the FDD and the earnings claims, you're looking in the past. By talking to current franchise owners, you're getting a current glimpse of what's happening. But ultimately, all of that is a setup for you to get bought into. Where can we all take this brand? That's what you're saying yes to. So if you're a candidate in my process, I want you more focused on who you're going into business with rather than what franchise you're investing in. The who is infinitely more important than the what. Here's why. Because over time, the what may have to adapt, evolve, and change. And if the who behind the what is not smart enough to be on those changes, to have the resources to be able to afford to adapt and grow and change the model, then the what becomes obsolete. So investing in a franchise is about who, not what. It's about finding a culture of people where you believe you can be coached and mentored. So part of being successful in a franchise is surrendering your ego at the door and being coachable. The number one thing all franchisors will say when I ask, well, what's the number one factor to success in your franchise? They'll say, somebody who can follow our process. And inevitably, if you go meet somebody who wasn't successful in their franchise and now they are successful in their franchise, and you ask, what's the difference between you and you? They'll say, I wasn't following the system and now I am. So you're saying, Kim, people buy a franchise and they don't do what the franchisor says? That is exactly what I'm saying. Now, you may say, I find that hard to believe. They're paying all that money and then they're doing it on their own. And I know you'll find it hard to believe, but all you have to do is get inside a franchise, start validating with some owners, and you'll hear it from their mouths. We all do it. Look, we're humans. We all think we know more. Look, I'll take a candidate who knows nothing about a business and I'll say, ooh, this is a great opportunity for you based on what you told me you want to do in a business, the skills you have, the time commitment you want to put in, things that you could get in and you could be successful at. And they'll go talk to the franchisor for 1 week and they'll come back and they'll be telling me all the reasons that business doesn't work. I'm not judging. I've done this for way too long to judge. All I'm pointing out is that we're humans. We think we know. And so we come at it like, yeah, I'm going to be humble and I'm going to do what you say. But then we put our money in it. And all of a sudden, it becomes a little bit hard to let go of control and to do what somebody else tells us to do, especially if our instincts are telling us to do something different. So why do people not follow the system? Well, there's many reasons, but let's blame it on our ego. That's probably the number one reason. But on the flip side of that conversation about ego, look, you got to have courage and guts to be a business owner, and you have to believe in yourself. So that ego, while sometimes it can hurt us in being successful in a franchise, is the very thing that will help you to go on and build a successful business. So there's always a positive and a negative. Okay, so going back to the conversation, franchising 101, and why, if you asked me, what's the number one reason to invest in a franchise? It's for who, not what. It's because you found people, you found a culture, you found a vision that you buy into. And as you get knowledgeable about what they're doing and where they're going, you're so inspired and you start to raise your hand and say, please pick me. I want to take your business model back to my community and help you achieve that national vision in my hometown. That's what we're doing. And so as franchisors go out there and they start awarding territory by territory, market by market, and the whole country is becoming flooded with their brand, we are all trying to work together to create a consistent consumer experience. Okay, so what is a franchise brand? What's the value of what we're doing here? Well, back up and ask yourself, what is a brand? As consumers, why do we love brands? Well, because we know what to expect. When you have an expectation, right, it makes you want to go back. If you had a great experience, you want to go back. If you had a horrible experience, you don't want to go back, right? So as franchisees, we all have an obligation to deliver our product or our service to our customers to meet their expectation of our brand. If you're part of an emerging brand, then you are teaching the customer what your value proposition is to them with every transaction. So think of the weight of that. I mean, as franchisees, we all have an obligation to be brand ambassadors and carry the flag for our brand. Every single customer that we interact with impacts the brand experience. So if you want to build a world-class brand, or you want to be part of a franchise that goes on to become a world-class brand like a Massage Envy or a Planet Fitness or a Chick-fil-A, then you have to do your part to carry that flag and to deliver on that customer promise with every single transaction. Those great American franchise brands are not built haphazardly. They're built with very strong cultures, with very tight FDDs, with leadership that leads with confidence and gets franchisees all moving in one direction. That is no small feat, because franchisees who are putting their money into a business, we just talked about how the ego gets in the way, but when things start to go wrong, and let's be real, it's a business, things are going to go wrong, and our fear level starts to creep in, we can start to lose faith in our franchisor. And herein lies why becoming a franchisor is also no joke. I field calls from potential entrepreneurs who think they're going to turn their business into a franchise every single week, and I talk them out of it all day long. Why? I know that sounds counterintuitive, but because being a franchisor, there's a lot of responsibility. The number one thing I say to an entrepreneur is, look, think of it this way. So you're going to turn your business into a franchise, and all of these people coming in are going to be investing the majority of their life savings in you and your dream. So listen, this is how it goes. When it's going right, you don't hear a peep from them. They take all the credit. But the second it's harder than they thought it was going to be, or it's not going according to the plan, they start looking at you and blaming you. So, do you really want to turn your business into a franchise? Being a franchisor is a very, very big responsibility. And being a franchisee is an even bigger responsibility. Why? Because there's more franchisees in a system than there are franchisors. There's only one corporate entity, and there's all of the franchisees. So collectively, the franchisees have more power to control the culture in a franchise and the brand experience, the customer experience, than the franchisor does. So initially, it's the franchisor's job to lead that culture, to say, this is our value proposition to our customer. But over time and in time, with many, many franchisees, it's your job to deliver on that customer promise or to not. So in the end, when brands go on to become the next big American brands, whose fault is it if they don't? And whose responsibility is it when they do? I'd say in the beginning, it's the franchisor. But over time, it's you. It's you and you and you and all of us franchisees. We hold the power to build these American brands. Starts with the franchisor's dream, but it ends with us. Okay? So back to franchising 101. That's the number one reason to invest in a franchise. You find people. Now, as an investor, why franchising over something else? I think we've made the case for why franchising over entrepreneurship, but let's just diversify this a little bit and let's talk about real estate investments. So I think a business cash flowing return trumps a real estate return in the short term all day long. Like, we all would love a portfolio of real estate, but that's like a long-term wealth building strategy for most people. But a business, and the right business, can produce cash flow that you can build and scale. So franchising comes with systems. Systems allow us as owners to work on rather than in. And that allows us to free up our time and focus on driving wealth through scale. So just like in a real estate portfolio, where it's not going to be about having one house, it's how do I leverage my time across multiple roofs or multiple doors? Well, the same thing will be true in a franchise. If you're building a franchise through teams of people, like a cleaning company, it's not going to be about one cleaning crew. It's how do I leverage myself across multiple cleaning crews? If you're building a business like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, where you're literally measuring revenue per truck, it's not about one truck. It's how many trucks can I put into a territory, and how do I leverage myself across multiple trucks? You want to build a fleet of vehicles. And if you're in a brick and mortar location, how do I leverage myself across multiple locations? So the wealth is always created through scale, but the scale is inherent in the franchise model. So that's the beautiful thing. If you want to build cash flow and you want to build and scale cash flow, the business cash flowing return in a franchise is made to help you achieve that goal. Now, here's something you may not know about franchising. When you build and scale this business, the equity in that business is yours to sell. I've interviewed people on my podcast, Create Wealth Through Franchising, who've told me their biggest ROI was when they went to sell their business. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you invest in a business that you build to, we'll be conservative, a $3 million top line revenue over 6, 7, 8 years. And let's say that nets to you 10%, 300 grand. Okay. We like 20%. Let's go 600 grand. Okay. So now you're making 20% on your business at the tune of 600 grand a year. Okay. And hopefully you've bought back your time. So maybe you're able to produce $600,000 a year in revenue for yourself, working 20 hours a week or less because you have an awesome team of people. So now let's say that you start pitching your business for sale to private equity or to small investors in your community. Let's say that you are in a good economy, in a thriving industry, and let's say that you could put a 3x multiple, a $1.8 million price tag on this business that you've built. That's pretty good, right? Well, that equity, assuming you sell it for 1.8 million or 2.4 million or 1.2, whatever it is, that equity is yours when you go to sell it. So this business that you're building is not just about quick cash flow. It can also be about how can I build and scale my wealth, but how can I build an entity that I can exit from at some future date and also make a lot of cash back from? So there's that equity piece. That's a really big factor, okay? And the last thing I want to say about franchising 101 here is I hope I've made a good case and I hope you're getting it. But the last thing is the legacy piece, okay? Many times I've met people who've worked for corporate America and they've made a lot of other people a lot of money. They know the value that they created for somebody else and they say, Kim Daly, I want to do that for myself. Now, there's a financial reward in building that business, but there's something deeper. There's a personal level of satisfaction, of inner growth from daring to do something that only a small percentage of people will ever do, which is step out in faith and own a business. But then to be successful at it, to learn how to get control over a business, I define it like having putty in your hands that you just get to learn how to mold. And as you become a masterful business owner, I promise you, you will feel absolutely unstoppable. And when you feel like that, building wealth, no matter how it is, it's your future. And it's the future that you give to your family, to your children, to your employees, to your community. The legacy piece that you pass on far exceeds any monetary value that you will get from being a successful business owner. There are many other intangible factors that factor into becoming a business owner, and we cannot leave that part out of a franchising 101 conversation. This is the surest, best way to level up in your life. I say that owning a business, this is like the best personal development playground for adults. If you want to figure out who you really are, invest in a business because a business is going to challenge you in ways, maybe second to being a parent, like nothing else in your life will ever challenge you. But like, that's the fun part of it. It's not bumping up and reacting. It's bumping up and going, wow, okay, this is hard. Or, hey, I don't want to react to that. I want to learn how to respond. And then as you bump up against things that aren't going right and you figure out how to make them go right, you start to grow. And you start to grow professionally, and that helps you grow personally. And here's the thing. When you grow personally and professionally, you can't help but grow financially. There's a lot of people out there that are looking at franchising like a get rich quick scheme. They think it's a turnkey model. I'm going to put in my money, I'm going to turn the key, and I'm going to make that earnings claim. Well, they are going to wake up into a very cold slap of reality because nothing could be further from the truth. Business ownership is a personal development game and journey. So we're going to buy down the learning curve by buying all those proven systems and technology and all the things that give us the strategy. But then we're going to apply our own mindset because how we think, how we talk, and how we act determines how we show up for our business. And how we show up is going to determine the success that we have or that we don't have in that business. So this whole franchising 101 is not a guarantee. There are no guarantees in life. And where would the fun be if there were? If there was a guarantee, everybody would be out doing it and doing it well. But part of the magic of learning to become a successful business owner is living in that great unknown. I know it's scary. The first time you step off into the deep end of the pool and you land in the safety net of a franchise, it is scary. But once you learn to master a little bit of control, you are going to grow inside, and that growth is going to fuel future growth. You're going to come back and you're going to want more territory. You're going to want more locations. You're going to want another business. And that is the growth that I'm speaking of. That is true wealth. It's masterful, it's controlled, and it's wealth. It's something that nobody can ever take away from you. You went and you worked for somebody else. They took that job away from you. The day that you sign a franchise agreement, what do you ultimately want? You want control. Well, what I've just described here in this Franchising 101 video in a very roundabout way is how you ultimately can get control. First, you say yes to the dream to own a business, and you do it through a franchise for all the reasons I've already said. But then you show up every single day for your own yes, for your own personal and professional growth. And the more you figure out how to give and serve, the more you're going to overflow in abundance of money, but so many other things that are so much more satisfying than money. And how do I know all of this? Because I'm a franchisee, because I've been living this life for over 20 years of my life. Franchising has completely changed my life and my legacy to my children, to my family, to my community, and most importantly, to myself. So if you are ready to get in the game and to learn more about what type of options will be your franchise options. So if you are ready to get in the game and you want a little bit more of Kim Daly to help you find the perfect franchise opportunity for the ride of your life, for the playground that you want to play in for the next 10 years, well, you know that I would love to be your franchise consultant and your daily coach. So this is how you do it. Follow the link in the description below right now. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't overthink it. Just follow the link and reach out to me. I will find you right away. And I promise you, I don't know if franchising will be the right thing for you, but I will educate you and we will have a whole lot of fun figuring out the next move in your life. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you now feel like you are schooled in Franchising 101, and I absolutely hope that I get to meet you.